I will now call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Gail Schnitzer-Eisenberg, Supervisor.
Here.
Stefan Mosier, Trustee. Stefan, say here. Stefan, are you there? Yes, I see you. Elliot Robbins, Trustee.
Here.
Danielle Rubin, Trustee.
Here.
John Thomas, Trustee.
Here.
Jan Churchbell, Assessor.
Yes.
Diane Ty, Director of Administration and Finance.
Here.
I see also present, Mary Lawler, you're here with the League of Women Voters, is that correct? And then,
Yes, that is correct.
and I think, Kate, can you identify yourself, please? Oh, Kate,
You're
go on.
asking me to identify myself, or?
No, there we had another, I think we had another resident president, but she's not here anymore. So Supervisor Schnitzer-Eisenberg, we have a quorum for conducting official business.
Thank you. We'll now start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for your patience as we got started today. Kate is now back, so I'll let her back in. Kate, we were just asking if you wanted to introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Kate Kasam McNally. I reside in Winnetka. I'm just here as a private citizen.
Thank you. Are there any public comments for the board tonight? I'm also going to check on our live stream to make sure. Going slowly. Okay, I'm not seeing any comments on the live stream. Okay, so we'll continue along with our agenda. Approval of the minutes from the May 25th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for providing us with the minutes and for the addendum. Are there any changes to the minutes from May 25th? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second? We will go with Stefan for fun. Tie goes to Stefan. That calls for a roll call vote since we are still under the emergency rules.
Supervisor Schnitzer-Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Mosier,
Yes.
Trustee Robbins,
Yes.
Trustee Rubin,
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Approved on a roll call vote.
Thank you. All right, we should be on the supervisor's report. First thing first, appointments. As the supervisor of general assistance, I would like to appoint Jean Rosser to our social services administrator as the general assistance staff pursuant to 305 ILCS 5/12-21.2. Is there any discussion on that? I don't think I need a vote for that, so thank you. Your advice and consent is always welcome. Agency updates, the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic did moved to a new location in Highland Park. They're on Western Avenue now. And that's welcome because if you guys recall that they had accessibility problems that we had expressed concern about, ensuring that all township residents can access their legal services. Family Services of Wilmette, Glenview, Northbrook, and Kenilworth is also moving. They're moving to 191 Waukegan Road in Northfield. Letters have finally now been written and should be going out this week. All agencies know their allocations. but we had not been able to do that without access to our network. So we have included a portion asking them to maintain communications with our staff members and to consider us a partner as much as we consider them partners. Legislative update. Okay, so this, speaking of the emergency rules for Open Meetings Act, hold on. Okay, that's fine. Speaking of the emergency rules under the Open Meetings Act, the revisions to the Open Meetings Act did not pass the General Assembly, which means that upon the expiration of the emergency order, it is unlikely that we will be able to continue to meet from Zoom. So it's likely that they will have a continued emergency order, but it will unlikely to be including a statement or a finding that it is not feasible to meet in person, which is what we need for those emergency extensions. So we should plan to have our next meeting in person in July. All right. And that will also obviously mean for committee meetings as well. Other issues out of Springfield, the bill that I worked on with Laura did pass both houses and is now awaiting signature. So that's the Ramadan annual meeting conflicts bill. We're also, if we were to have a vacancy on one of our board members, a new law that just passed would require us to post those vacancies. Now, also for the first time, township lobbyists now must register with the Secretary of State and submit expense disclosures, including any consultants, and they're now including soliciting others to make solicitations. So there are some major changes on the ethics laws, but I wanted to focus on that since that is the one that really would impact us. In my 4 years, I have not been lobbied per se, at least not by a professional lobbyist. So I'm not sure it will be that effective, that much of a change. And there will also be major changes to the statement of economic interests, which I think is very welcome for all of us to make it, not confusing, and to really get at what we're trying to get to the point. The legislature also passed a budget, which is important for our agencies. We saw what happened a few years ago when we did not have one, and a lot of our agencies who depend on state funding had horrible budget problems. And also it includes a reimbursement increase for our social services providers for developmental disabilities. So that's very welcome for our providers as well. All right. I think that is everything on day one. Oh, the bill that I had flagged that would amend the township code. We had hoped that it would have stayed in its original form, which would have allowed us to transition general assistance dollars to other funds. Sadly, it got amended very much so. And it looks like all the new changes are that we are prohibited from keeping more than 2.5 times the annual average expenditure for the previous 3 fiscal years in our GA fund. But as far as I can tell, there's no way to transfer those funds. So I will be talking to our township attorney on that one to see how we can do that. Because as we know, we've had, we have an accumulated amount in that general assistance fund. The power of attorney event for students happened last week. We had 25 people attend. But only 2 residents used our notary service through Len. I assume people use their own systems, but I was on the call and it was extremely informative and people had a lot of interesting questions. Danielle, were you on that too?
No, I wasn't on that one.
All right. Hopefully we can make that an annual event. We had our committee on committees first meeting this week. I had hoped to be able to get something on our agenda for this week, but we are not done with our work. But we did have a very productive meeting. That meeting had Brian, myself, and then represented the chairs of each of the committees, as well as their designee. So, and we met at the Winnetka Police Department. And we made some revisions to the funding application that we'll be able to use for our July funding period. Simply just making things clearer, mostly semantics. If you recall, last year there was a question about what kind of insurance we're asking about, and when we asked for them to certify that they have insurance. So we did clarify that we're looking for general liability insurance, and that we want to be added as an additional insured. We also started our discussions of the conflict of interest policy, but we have not been able to complete that. But I did present a draft, and we have set up a second meeting in 2 weeks. We will also be including in that agency funding application a requirement to disclose on the agency side that they do not perceive any conflicts that haven't been disclosed. And a similar change will be made to the committee member application as well. Any questions on that? Great. Sorry, these are long. Our next big outreach event is the Township Shred event. So I hope you guys will all be there. That's June 26th. And that will be at St. Joe's Catholic Church parking lot. Kate, who's on the call, is our citizen chair. And everyone is encouraged to volunteer for that as well. And we have been asked to participate in the Glencoe 4th of July parade. Elliot and I did that 2 years ago, got a lot of steps in. So if anybody is interested, I will probably participate again. But like, seriously, it's much longer than anticipated. And hot. But yes, and then last in July will be our big Bernie's Book Bank Summer Drive on July 9th, and that'll be at Regina, Dominica. So we're spreading out our outreach events this year, which I think is useful as well. Any questions on my supervisor's report? Okay, clerk's report.
Hi, everybody. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention. You all saw the meeting minutes. I did have some problems with my scanner, but from now on, when we post meeting minutes on the website, we will also include exhibits or attachments or an addendum of anything we had used in the board meeting that we relied on during the board meeting. They will be attached to the minutes. Of course, we will not include confidential things. So far, it looks like one of the things we wouldn't include would be some of those claims reports that have names on. But from now on, when we do post minutes on our website, which we will be doing regularly, we are going to make sure we include all of those other documents that we're relying on, like staff reports and budgets and things like that. So I'm looking forward to getting into the office because I am already, my home office is exploding with paperwork. So I guess that's the clerk's and secretary's job. So thank you for everyone who's been making sure they get me the copies of things I need. I really appreciate that, especially Gail and Elliot. They've made sure they've gotten me their signatures and copies of all of the paperwork. I did want to mention that I went to an Open Meetings Act, just kind of a general thing, not the one that we all need to do the training. And they mentioned two things. Gail's already mentioned that we are going to have to start meeting in person. And I just wanted to reiterate what she said again. And to get a quorum, we do need that many people. I believe it's 4 out of the 5 of us that are voting members that are present to maintain the quorum. The 5th member could be present via telephone or another communication, but to be able to vote, we are going to need that many members in person. So I just wanted to mention that. And they did say that although you all need to get in 90 days of your election and are swearing in, and I need to get it within, I think, 30 days, since the Attorney General's website is still down, there is not going to be any penalty for doing it after that time. They realize they're really the only person that provides that training and certification. So I'll keep you updated if I learn any more, and I'm sure Gail's been on the lookout too, forwarding me emails as well. So we'll let you know if anything we can go ahead and do that training. And just the last thing, for the budget ordinance, I was able to create an online account for New Trier Township. So we now do have the ability to file online. I haven't filed it. I have to follow up with someone who might know better. I have access to 3 agencies. One's just called New Trier Town, one's called General Assistance Town, and one's called the Road and Bridge New Trier. And I wasn't for sure which one agency I had to post our budget ordinance to. So if anyone knows.
I could add to that. It would be the town fund.
So not the general assistant, just the regular.
Right, just the regular, and we don't have the road and bridges, which is why we have that listed, but we have zero funds there.
So I'll make sure tomorrow then I submit
Excuse
that
me.
and we'll be good. So that's my clerk report. Thank you.
Nicole, I just wanted to compliment you on the record for the thoroughness and the detail of your minutes. Quite good. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. It was a long meeting. Everyone was so helpful getting me and especially Danielle that background information. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Assessor Jan Churchwell, do you have a report today?
I do I have a report. It's very short. We are open for appeals, finally. The last day to file will be July 1. We are working out of the police department's classroom. And we are following the same standard that we were following in the township before the fire, which was that on an as needed basis, people may make appointments and come in. We are telling everyone we are not open to the public as a general rule, because we don't want people, just wandering into the police lobby looking around. And I rather thought that the police would appreciate not having that happen either. So that's the end of my report.
So Jan, are you working out of the Winnetka Police Department?
Yep.
Is that where you're set up?
Yeah.
I thought you were in the community house. That's why I was asking.
No, oh, no. We always planned on being in the police station. We lined that up very quickly.
Good.
I stopped by. It looks like a good setup. I will just give you one note, is that on the door of the township building, it still says we're not open for appeals.
Oh, okay, thank you. I will go pull that off after the meeting before the sun is gone.
Anyway,
That means a short meeting.
Right, for me, that's true. It would be, wouldn't it?
we'll see. All right. Financial report, Diane Ty.
Okay, what I have here, and I'm hoping everyone received their copies of it, and I'm going to take a little time, just go through these 2 reports just to give our new people on the board a little bit of just a walkthrough on these documents. So if it's boring for the rest of you, I'll make it as quick as I can. The first report, which is a 2-page report, is the April financial report. And what this is, in essence, is a snapshot of both of the funds that we have, the town fund and the general assistance fund. It provides what I call the snapshot of the dollars that are in our bank accounts and in our different categories of our receipts that we've had at the end of each month. It is a recap, if you will, of what dollars have been received, expenses have been made, and it outlines it for both the town fund and the GA. Just walking through it quickly, it'll note that the cash balance as of the end of the last fiscal year, which was February 28th of this year, and that was what the ending balance was in that fund at that time. It then in the next area identifies all of the year-to-date activity, whether it was levy receipts, the personnel property replacement tax, and Steph and I did bring a description of that because you had mentioned that last month, or wasn't 2 months ago. Our interest income and the different incomes that we have. Just to note that the IMET recovery, you're not going to be seeing dollar going there unless we receive something we've had an account. With IMET, this was a long time ago, we had lost some funds. It was, I believe, 10,000. I would have to check exactly. And those dollars are being paid back at a very slow rate. But if you see something show up, I will certainly identify that. The other income is the TORMA dividend that we receive annually from TORMA, which is our insurance company. And that usually comes at the first part of the year, the first quarter, if you will, and it came in April. That then shows the cash balance, and the section below will show the assets. And as I noted, it'll outline the checking accounts, the payroll, noting what their percentages are. And I'd also like to comment that those are quite low. About a year ago, we had some really, really good rates, but that's not just this problem. It's across the board for all any kind of investments. On the second page, or just to make a note, if we stop the clock at this point in time, we would have a total of $1.593 million in the town fund. That sounds quite high, as Gail had noted back when we were talking. She was talking about the funds and that, but this is remembering this is only 2 months of activity. It doesn't display, for instance, the end of this month, we're going to pay agencies a third of their dollars. So moving on to the second page, same information, but this is all for the town, or excuse me, the general assistance account. And then noting that that is quite a large amount there at this point. Any questions on the 2 pages?
Dan, I have a question.
Sure.
At this point, we have all of our assets primarily in one institution. And I've raised this before, I'll raise it again. I think that we should consider, since everybody's got such low interest rates, putting some of that money in other banks or indoor institutions so that we don't have all of our assets in one place.
I remember that conversation, Stefan, and I believe if at the last board or the last board before they had decided, we had it in I think 2 other places, and then it was all moved into the BMO Harris, and that's certainly something that can be considered. I can look into that again, but it was a board decision at that point in time, and I believe it was the 4th year. If I know, forgive me, it was when another trustee, I think Kevin Boyd was still a trustee at that point.
That is my
Gotcha.
recollection as well, yes. But if there is a proposal that we can consider as far as changing that, I think that would be helpful.
Well, part of the reason we always kept it at Harris was because they gave us a break, or they gave us a benefit being the township within the community. At this point, it looks like their rates are pretty much consistent with everybody else's. So I really don't see any reason we shouldn't diversify our portfolio. And I think that as prudent investors, we would be compelled to do so.
And the question I have then will, and this was an item that was in that discussion at that point in time, remaining in the other institutions within the township, not to go out, because there had been discussions about that. If we go, where else would we go if it wasn't? Obviously we have like Chase Bank, we have the North Shore Bank and that. So
We have Northern Trust in Winnetka, which is a fine branch.
right,
I do think interest rates might start creeping up again
do too.
soon. And the only thing I worry about is if we split things up too much, sometimes we miss out on some of the better rates. By having larger balances, sometimes you can get better rates. Nobody knows what's going to happen for sure. I agree with Stefan's and Gail's sentiment that it's probably not good to have all our eggs in one basket, but we also want to keep in mind that when interest rates do creep up, if they do, we'd like to capture as high a rate as we can. So it's certainly food for thought.
It's pretty much the same across the board right now, wherever you go. So, okay. Okay, then I will move on to the next report if there's no questions on that. The 4-page document that's been presented is really I think one of the most helpful tools, because what it does display is it shows the dollars, and I'll walk this through quickly. It shows our dollars that were set up and approved for our budget, and at our last meeting, that budget document that was approved was certainly in a different format, and that's the document that Nicole is, refers or sends down to the county, and that, which was really a recap of our budget. Just to walk you through, on the first page, the far left corner, which I've highlighted, obviously it doesn't come through when it's scanned down, but that is our budget. And those dollars all the way through the town fund and the general assistance is what was replicated on that budget document and approved as a budget ordinance. This, in my opinion, is more helpful because it gives a specific line by line allocation of the dollars that we spend. And to note also for the new people that these dollars, the board tries very, very much to keep everything in line unless there is something that has to be, something, an emergency would come up. But at the end of the fiscal year, before we close the accounts, we have to have everything in line with the line items. And if there is a need and we've exceeded one of our line items for whatever reason it might be, there would be a line item transfer report and approved by the board. So that would come at the end of February, one-time thing. Also noting that any expense that exceeds the line items cannot be in total more than 10% of that total account or fund. That's quite a large amount when you're looking at a $3.3 million budget, but it's my recommendation that we certainly wouldn't do that because it then would be reflective of the budgeting process and the accountability for all of our expenses. The first line on the first page will show the estimated, what we call estimated revenues. These are the revenues that we had presented that we thought that we will receive throughout the fiscal year. This was approved at the last meeting on the 25th, noting that the property tax, those are dollars that were approved in December for the tax levy ordinance, the 2020-02. It does seems kind of backwards, but what happens is that the levy has to be submitted by the end of February, whatever year that is. In our case, it's prior to our closing. So the levy is being presented and approved before the new fiscal year starts. So those dollars there, the 2.733 are the dollars that were approved in that levy ordinance. Moving down, these are just the allocations of the agency programs that were approved back in February to each of our agencies, noting that there are 3 payments a year to each of the agencies, and they're every 4 months. So like I mentioned before, June 30th, we will be issuing the first allocation to these agencies, and then October, and then February. The second column represents the actual dollars that have been either received, as noted in the beginning part of this, for the activity of revenues, or expended throughout those 2 months specifically. As you see, there's no dollars noted here that have been paid through April because we're not going to be doing that until June. The third column, and this is the same for all of the 4 pages, in the third column will show what is called year-to-date funds received or available. In the case of revenues, those are dollars that have been received. And in the case of expenses, those are dollars that have been made available. The calculation is the budget versus the actual will give you that column, which will show you what was received for the for the revenues and what has been expended, noting that there's no change there because those dollars haven't been spent in the agencies. The fourth column is the year-to-date activity percentage, which is the actual dollars from column 2 divided by the budget. This gives you a quick snapshot of, for instance, if you'd said 909 or 910,000, we've received that. What percentage is that of what we had actually levied? In this case, it's 33.8%. The same for the expenses, but when we look at the expenses, it would be what percentage of expenses had been spent based on our budget. And the budget is the driving force for all of our activity. Any questions on this? Moving forward to the second page, all of these columns are all the same. Just to highlight that we had the different town fund categories. For instance, our dial-a-ride, we had experienced, we spent, if you will, $1,000, and that represents 2.6%, leaving a balance for usage for the expenses for just about $34,000. Same calculations take place throughout the different items. Noting a lot of the activity is really in the contractual services where we have the printing and the postage and all the different areas. And those dollars, looking in aggregate for 2 months, is really only an expenditure of 11.61%. Moving on to the third page, same type of calculations for the different areas, giving down at the bottom third of that document the total expenses for the whole for the whole town fund for those 2 months is $173,000, which represents only 5.21%. But again, we don't have the routine dollars that come through the agencies. As we move through the year, there will be different kinds of dollars that will show up. And certainly, if there's any questions on any of these, I can certainly pull that documentation for that. Moving on to the 4th page. This is for the general assistance only, noting the same kind of calculations. For instance, if you notice, we've received just about the same amount of revenues for the general assistance. That is, there is no pattern to that. It just depends on when these dollars are received. The 2 big areas that are really where the dollars are spent in the general assistance is in the home relief and in the emergency assistance. As for the past probably 3 or 4 years, this use of emergency assistance is growing each year. And those are the dollars, as you can see, we budgeted $195,000. And last year we used a good portion of that. The hospitalization insurance is really a catastrophic insurance that is used to protect our general assistance, that in the event there was a catastrophe, we have, I think it's a $25,000, whatever you want to call that, liability, not a liability, but the $25,000 would be our share of that. But we, knocking on wood, have not had any kind of issues of that sort over the years, but we still carry that insurance for protection for the township and our accounts. Food pantry, for those 2 months, which noting too, that was before our fire, we were sitting at 6.79%. The budget we had put up to $100,000, and as we get moving forward and everything gets back in place, and we will certainly be spending those dollars. The salaries and the administration, the Social Security, that is a function of a transfer, if you will, and those are dollars that are set up that are then once a year or near the end of the year, those are transferred, or mid-year transferred, and those are for the expenses. For the salaries, pretty much of what Jean would spend, what the supervisor would spend, what any of the office staff would help, with any kind of a general assistance. And these dollars are determined to be this $103,100, and those transfer will be a credit into the town funds account, and it would then become an expense. As I do the journal entry, that'll become more apparent for that explanation. The total assistance expenses was $24,882 for the year, which is really 4.95%. Bottom section gives you a quick recap of what the total revenues were received for that 2-month period and what the total grand expenses were. A discussion had come up, and I can't remember exactly, it might have been Steph and it might have been Elliot, but we had talked about, if you look on the left-hand column, you see the $619,352. That was the projected amount based on what we said we would get for revenues versus expenses. Again, noting last year, we did not reach that. We went $152,000 down for the town fund, and we had budgeted probably close to this amount for what we thought we would spend in the town fund, but that didn't realize. Again, I think I mentioned that those dollars do not just disappear. It's not like if you don't use it, you lose it. These dollars refer back into our accounts, and that's where our dollars are stored. Overall, we've used 5.818% of our expenses for the 2 funds, and we have received approximately 33% of the revenues.
Diane, I have a question. On the personnel expenses on the town fund, we're 21.5% already of the year. Will that be reconciled because the money comes over from general assistance?
Yes.
Or will we probably have to do a line item transfer for those additional expenses? Because if we're 21.4% or 5% already in after 2 months, then you'll obviously be over what's been budgeted by the end of the year.
Correct, but that is offset by that transfer.
Okay,
And
that's what I
that's how
thought you
the,
were saying. I just
yeah,
wanted to
that's how
know.
the budget is set up and calculated. Um, But
Okay.
now that you've asked that question, I did want to provide, I pulled up to give you an exact, exact description of when you had asked about the personal property replacement taxes.
Right,
And what
I
the
did.
definition is, the personal property replacement taxes are revenues collected by the state of Illinois and paid to local governments that replace those dollars that were lost by local governments when their powers to impose personal property taxes on corporations, partnerships, and other businesses were taken away. That was quite a long time ago. I believe that was in 1979 or 80. So those are the dollars that we receive. We really don't have the control over that. Those are paid by corporations and partnerships and trusts. And then those dollars are allocated back by the county to the township and to whatever local government agency it is. Excuse me.
Thank you.
I have a question, but
Sure.
I think I know the answer.
Okay.
Were we not, as a government entity, eligible for any of the PPP funds that our agencies got that came out of those big
No.
expenditures for COVID?
Yeah, I remember you had asked that. No, we were not eligible, John. Okay.
Other questions for Diane? Thank you, Diane.
Mhm.
We have received staff reports. I'm seeing from Jean. Am I not seeing from Brian? No, you're not seeing that.
I don't see that.
Okay, so then we are not going to accept his report. We will acknowledge Jean's report. Any discussion regarding her report?
Nope.
All right, Diane, back to you for the building operations update.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Good news is everyone has heard the electricity was actually went up or put on live as of effective last, I think it was last Friday, yeah, Friday, late morning. Since that time, we have experienced obviously some, what I would call a shakedown of things like alarm systems and that type of thing, which is all a very normal thing. I've been working with the fire department and with it, the different agencies that support our monitoring system. We have that in check. As late as last evening, we'd had some issues, but the bottom line is the electricity is there as of yesterday. All of the computers have been checked and all of the phones, the new phone systems have been installed and everybody is functional. We also had the air conditioning inspection, which Gail's shaking, yes, because the building was quite toasty, but that's been addressed and the units have been inspected because I wanted to make sure anytime you have something out of this amount of time, that's going to happen. The elevator people were here, the inspection was made and it is now fully operative. There are items and different things on the schedule that have to be addressed. For instance, the water that's probably ended up in the pit that's in the elevator, it was probably about 2 feet or more tall. We didn't get any damage in the car itself. It had been in place and stopped a little bit above the lower level at the time of the fire. But that's fine. That's something we have that has to be handled. I'll make sure we have that, and it's going to have to involve one of our plumbers as well. The copier that's up, I've asked Larisha to get that straightened around. We're going to have again a technician come in, and we'll have to get our system back reinstalled because they do monitor our use via an electronic app. The building, if anybody's in there, I know Gail, you've been in there, and I know the building is it had been given a clean at the day after, I believe it was a day after the fire, the second day after. The water had been removed and there had been soot and those type of things throughout the building, which is, only natural, even though this fire did not spread to the second or third floor. I have arranged to have that given what we call a deep clean. That's going to be either the end of the week or over the weekend, just to get the building in place. We have some little and we'll be discussing that at our meeting tomorrow, Gail, I'm sure, but getting the things off the floors and all that, because there is a need for that. On the desks, there is a film, although they were cleaned. And I guess from what I can understand from the cleaning crew is that once the air conditioner came on and became operative, there was probably some things left in the different tubes and that kind of thing. I don't know how much, but nonetheless, we're addressing that because we've got to have a safe environment, not only for ourselves, but for the building itself here. Like I mentioned about the alarm systems, that's going to be, we've called in our group, they're going to come and do an inspection on that. I think it's the first part of next week, just to make sure the alarm system, which is working clearly. I worked with the fire department quite late last night because we were having trouble signals in that, and all of that is being worked out and everybody's on the same page with that. Outstanding, there are some outstanding items, and then there's one more item here. We have outstanding items that just ties into these last items that I've discussed. We need drywall in the basement. The basement is historically really moist down there, but because of the water that flowed in out of the electrical room, we'd had the rug cleaned, but there is damage that's going to have to be taken. We want to make sure that we don't minimize it. We want to have that fixed. I also learned from our elevator people that there was water in their section in the elevator room, which is directly across from where the fire took place or where the arc started. And it didn't damage, nothing was damaged, but there is mold now from that moisture that is in there. So that's an addition to that. We have it's called Johnson Controls, but it's really a secure security system for the people everyone has on that company is going to be contacted. Those units weren't affected, but I still want to make sure that everything has been addressed in the building during that time. If you noticed, if anybody's been in the building, which I'm thinking not, like I'd said, out in front, we still have where the plate is and the vault, if you will, which is where the village connects to the township, and that's where it comes into our main system. That's been left. We didn't put the cement back on there because in our building, and I mentioned this, I think way at the very beginning, we had a gas meter that was located, my guess from what I've seen is probably, it's been there like for whatever is 2 feet or whatever. Throughout the whole discussions, there have been discussions with the fire department and with the just the different people from the electrical and all that in the village. And the distance between the meter and that, had that arced, we would have probably lost the building. As a result, we are going to be moving that meter out of the building. And it's going to be out in front of the building, which is not only the best decision, but it's the safest decision, because my discussions with all of them were, and the contractors, and that is what is the safest, and that is the safest. So that'll be going out. So if you see what looks like a little sand pile out there, the purpose was not to cover it up and then have to break the cement and redo that. So I'm working with the gas company to try to get this, and they'll address that. I think that is pretty much the update for now, Gail.
I would like to open the floor to questions because I'm sure there are a few.
Well, the overall question is, and I'm sure this will be better answered maybe in the meeting you guys are having tomorrow. What is your best estimate of when you'll be back up and running in a, let us say, 90% normal fashion?
We had this conversation, I think, probably at the last meeting, and you're right, we will be discussing that at our meeting. Given this is the first week, actually the Tuesday after we got the electricity up, we're making progress with all of what I call the basic issues, the air conditioning, air in the building, the elevator. To answer your question, and that's, I don't have a solid answer for that, but if it would take us another maybe week to get these other vendors in, I think I mentioned earlier that the repairs down to in the basement for the drywall and whatever is not going to affect the being in the building. It will affect the pantry, I think, and that if there's going to be that kind of work downstairs, and that's something that we as a group are going to have to discuss, so that we have that kind of a decision, what is most reasonable. But that's being kept pretty much till one of the last things, so that could go on and assess that. So maybe 2 weeks. I'm thinking by the end of by the end of next week. But again, that's based on getting the appointments and all that, which I've worked on over the weekend and as well as yesterday and today.
Diane,
It's a long answer, sorry.
Diane, it sounds like you're making really good progress, better than I anticipated based on our last meeting. What about the mold remediation issue? Do we have an estimate of what's involved in remediating any and all mold and how long that's going to take?
We originally had a good question, Elliot. We originally had an estimate that I've got to revisit that with the company, that was based on the fact that there was no electricity. They needed lights. They'd have to bring in generators to do that. And it was decided not to do that. So I am working to get an additional estimate or redo of that estimate, also to include the elevator. And something I forgot to mention, I'm looking at my notes here, is that when I was talking with the fire department yesterday, and again last night on several occasions, the area where the electrical arc took place and the sprinkler came on, which had saved us, they also noted that the ceiling, and I noticed that the ceiling is totally basically removed. And that has to be replaced, because they said if we hadn't had that part of that ceiling and that drywall, it could have gone right up, and that would have gone right up through the building, which would be right in the front part of the building, up through the whole first floor. So once I get the estimate, I'll have a better feel for that.
And Diane, one follow-up question. Has our insurance company been cooperative, and are these various contractors billing the insurance company directly?
Everything is focused, and this contractor has worked with the village, approved, received, he's been inspected by the village. That has to all go through the village, because this is their property out there, and they're basically our main coming in. Yes, they've been very, very accommodating. We've made a payment to them. We've received that reimbursement. I am now keeping a file, which I actually had started from the very beginning, of any and all expenses, for not only the big things, but like for the water, the water cleaning or anything that would be associated with this. And we will continue to have more bills as we move forward and get out of this situation.
Very good.
Diane,
Mhm.
Diane, does the village have to give authority or approval for us to go back in and use the building again, or not?
They have to give authority to even sign off on any work that is done. No, not to my knowledge, that they have to prove that we can go into the building. If we've had the inspection for the safety, we were having the inspections for the, which is why we're trying to do this, all the different vendors and different building vendors, if you will. If those are being inspected and we're receiving clearance on that, I think that decision is up to really the township, and certainly the consideration of the people in that township and the people using the building.
Our staff
I
has
wonder-
been working out of, temporarily in and out of the building as possible and as needed.
Correct.
Diane, you mentioned there was going to be a deep clean, and I know that the former clerk, he couldn't get in necessarily to remove a lot of his things, and I was just wondering if there would be some sort of assistance of helping us. I understand that there might be personal effects in furniture that also might need a deep cleaning. I was just not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, well, the deep clean really is, Nicole, is really for the for instance, each office, the desktops, the buildings and all that, the furniture, they would certainly, I don't know about his personal furniture, if you wanted that clean. They, basically what they're doing is the washrooms, the kitchens, the tabletops, all of the surfaces throughout the building. For instance, on some of the desks you would see, and this was before, or right after the fire, you'll see like white areas where a coffee cup was left sitting on the desk or where something. So that's really pretty much what it's focused as far as if you're talking about chairs being cleaned and all that, they're really wiping everything down. I don't know what Jerome has in his office that's personal.
Is the couch his, Nicole?
I don't know.
Yes, I believe the couch is his, so.
Have you?
For the conditions even, because there, there was soot and fire and. Mhm.
Yeah, well, we can certainly, I mean, ask them to wipe that. I didn't even think about a cot. They know that we have the chairs and the arms and the chairs and everything that's being wiped down completely. I can certainly mention it to our vendor. Have you talked with Jerome on this at all?
He's spoken previously that he was going to try to get in there at some point and get things out when the building was open. So like removing his personal furniture too.
Yeah, the people that are cleaning and doing the deep clean are really are going to be doing the whole building. They don't touch the personal things that the people have. They're really responsible for cleaning and making sure that of all the surfaces and anywhere and everywhere that soot is gone.
Any other questions regarding the building operations update?
I had a quick question. So first of all, Diane, thank you so much for all these updates. Much appreciated. It sounds like the food pantry might be opening up in the near future. And I just wanted to know what our plans are to notify residents when we make this switch.
That's, in my opinion, what's going to happen is we have to be able to, are you talking about the actual clients, are you?
Yes.
Okay. The clients are going to have to be reached out to. They originally had scheduled appointments. There had been a list. Our administrative assistant, Larisha, had been working on making sure those lists were current. That has to be current. There had been mailings going out to the people. But we certainly would use the social media and all of the different things to promote, and let everyone know, because that's a big switch for them. And I would think that if we reached out to them, because there are some people that if they get a letter, they're not going to be aware of that, but just follow up for all of them so that we end up reaching any and everyone that had been there, but also being able to get our regular people scheduled and get them back on a program, if you will.
And those who have been going to Northfield, we can certainly work with Northfield to remind those who are coming that it's time to come back. And we'll work with them as we have been for the last few weeks.
Right.
Yes, it would be. I think it will be a great opportunity for us to showcase the township and to remind everybody that we do have a food pantry here. I know Brian has been able to turn back on the freezers, which take a few days to get cold. So we're right on schedule for that. And it's well stocked, to be honest. So today we went through the pantry with Go Green Winnetka to discuss sustainability practices, especially related to food waste. And actually the bags of food that we've been giving out during the pandemic have significantly reduced food waste. So that is something we're going to be considering whether or not we want to maintain. All right, anything else on the building? Seeing none. New business, I had placed on here the adoption of the updated personnel policies. They're not ready, and there's no need to rush them. So I'm not going to ask for your adoption. As I said, we're meeting with the staff tomorrow. I want to get some of their opinions on particular items, but there are also just a lot of additional legal questions that I need to get opinions on before I present it to the board. Since it is the first time we've changed our policies since I think 2007, there might, yes, it might be, they might be they're relatively major. As you may all recognize there's been a number of changes to employment law since 2007. And obviously, we're still subject to those changes despite our manual not being updated. Any continuing business?
Gail, I don't know if you want to mention or not. I thought you might mention it in your supervisor's report,
Oh.
but I think there's a very substantial and important award that was won recently by one of our township employees. You might want to talk about that.
Absolutely. Actually, I'll let you do it, and I'm going to pull up the picture I took of it. Hold on. All right, you go ahead and give a little discussion. And here is Brian with his award.
Gail informed me about an award called the Liberty Bell Award, which is one of the most important awards given annually by the Chicago Bar Association. And she recommended, Supervisor Eisenberg recommended that I nominate Brian for the award. And the Liberty Bell Award is for a non-attorney who makes a major contribution to the legal system, to the facilitation of laws and adherence to laws. And Gail thought that Brian might be an excellent candidate. And because I have some experience with the peer jury system and I've worked with Brian for a long time, she suggested I write nomination. I did write nomination. She looked it over. She made a couple of changes and approved it. Neither of us knew whether we had a real shot at it or not, but lo and behold, Brian Leverins won the Chicago Bar Association's 2021 Liberty Bell Award. Unfortunately, it was a virtual ceremony, but I do think we're going to get some hay with Jack's help and let the township know what an outstanding program Brian has created and how much he has accomplished and how significant this award is in legal circles in the state. And I think this is the shot in the arm that the peer jury program needs. And it's also motivational for Brian because we want to get peer jury up and running this summer for sure, this fall at the latest. And I think this is all going to dovetail nicely into that. So Gail, thank you so much for finding about the award and recommending that I nominate Brian.
It was very exciting.
Let me add for the people who are new to this board, Brian brought the idea and concept with him when he came here. And it has been his ballgame and his baby ever since, as Elliot well knows. It's just an outstanding thing. There are so many people who have benefited from it, and Brian just hums along with it.
Absolutely. It's hard to tell how many lives he's been able to positively impact, both on offender and on those who are on our jury and as well as in the agencies where offenders are doing service. So congratulations to Brian. And we will be definitely publicizing his award in our township newsletter.
I have a general question. We didn't get a communication report this month, nor is Jack present for the board meeting. So I just wanted some insights as to why.
Sure. We are currently in negotiations with Jack as to what his contract will be. We're still in those discussions, so I don't want to be overly detailed on that. But he had been in an hourly position in previous years, and we are trying to go to a flat fee consultant type of situation. So,
Gail, was that something you initiated? When you say we, is that the collective?
No, Jack had asked to go to a consultant format. And personally, I don't want to review invoices, as I'm sure no one else does either. So on an hourly.
As far as a report this month?
Did not receive one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I received his invoice, if you want to see that. That's basically the report. So we're still acting on the previous agreement, obviously.
Stefan, to my knowledge, this is, as Gail just said, this is sort of at his behest, and he's been after this thing for months now.
You're talking about a new arrangement, John? Okay, thank you.
Yep. And like I was saying, though, he has been continuing to perform, and he's doing a great job. He did a great job with our communications on the power of attorney event, the shred event coming up. But yes, we are operating on our previous agreement until we come to our new agreement.
Thank you.
Good question. All right. Since we don't have any additional continuing business, I will go to John Thomas for the approval of claims.
Thank you, but unfortunately, I just couldn't get my act together to get a follow-on from what Elliot did last month. And unless Elliot's got something special, I'd like to hold off until next month where I can get an overall picture, because there's a gap there that I'm not quite sure of. And it's, for those of you who are new to the ballgame, this approval of claims is a necessary thing, but very much a administrative piece of paper that has to be done and will get done.
So my question is, could we move for the approval, get a second, and go to discussion and ask Diane your questions? Let's try it. I don't want to take your job away from you, so go ahead, John. If you wouldn't mind moving for approval, and we'll go to discussion before we vote.
I don't think he's on. He's muted.
Yeah, I can't move for approval because I couldn't figure out quite how they did it, and not how they did it, but there's a gap there that I don't quite understand, and I'll have to get back to Diane on the next few days. So I can't move for approval. Maybe Elliot, who has a good grasp of that, can do so.
All I can say, John, is I think we are up to date through April the 30th. And what I received in the packet today were town fund and payroll ledgers for the month of May 1 to May 31. So that's what we need to approve, but I have no problem with waiting a month on that. It's up to you folks. Gail, I don't know how you feel about that.
I would be more comfortable going through them now, unless there is a lot of concern, just because officially we should not be, we don't pay these invoices until we've approved them. So I would like to make sure we're on good paper.
Not the checks already issued and sent? The ones that we saw on this month's reports, plural?
I mean, they shouldn't be. This is the point of the approval,
Well, I think they
No,
are.
They do go out, Gail.
right?
They
but
go out, and
but
these
they
are
should
these
not
are.
be.
No, that's not necessarily true.
No,
No, we're only asked to approve them, not to hold them up, or the law says we have to look at them,
it's
but it doesn't
basically,
say that we should hold them.
it's a ratification of those that which went out.
I mean, I got all of the ones from last month that, we approved. And then I do believe they were attached to Larisha's email to us, the May ones.
Yes.
So I do think it was continuance, like Trustee Robbins said, we got caught up last month, and now we have the 2 May in front of us. Larisha's email, the May payroll, and we have the May check register. But I think, we are up to date, and then these are the 2 for May that we're supposed to ratify tonight.
Correct.
John, I don't want to step on your toes, but I do feel comfortable making a motion for approval on the May numbers, but
Please do, Elliot.
well, I have a motion to, first is the town fund, and that involves check numbers 26099 through 26122. It's 1 page of checks, and the total amount of those checks is $26,884.58. And I move that we allocate those funds in accordance with that town fund ledger for May 1, 2021 through May 31, 2021.
Since that jibes Elliot with my notes, I'll second that.
I'll withdraw my previous motion to approve the town fund.
I didn't hear. I'm sorry. So is there any discussion regarding the town fund at this time.
I have a question. John, are you focused on the fact that you think there's a gap
Yes,
between that which we've approved and the next round, or the substance of
Yes.
what's in here?
yes, there's a gap there that I couldn't find, and it may be because I didn't have, see, here's what happened to me. Last month's material that came to the trustees, I did not get because unfortunately my email address was lost in Larisha's thing. So I don't have the minutes that tell me exactly where all this stuff was. And that's where I'm finding a gap in my information. There may be no gap in the actual information that's available.
Okay, thank you.
But if Elliot's got this stuff and what he just said is what I figured out that I would be looking at, I'm okay with that.
I have one question under questions. Diane, Boardwalk Electric, check number 26099, $9,125.
Yeah, that's the company that did that's the deposit for them. That's the company that did the contract work on the building.
And then that's an amount that we're paying directly to the contractor, and then we're hoping to get
We've
reimbursed.
received, we've received the reimbursement, yes. And we will, that's
Excellent.
where their progress or their protocol is.
That's the only question I have.
My only question was about Chow Association, CIAO. I just don't know what that is.
That, Jan, was a cost for your association, for you
Right,
and Leonard?
right. That's the Certified Illinois Assessors Association dues. And since Len is also qualified, it's for both of us.
Okay, just checking. I didn't know my acronym.
I don't blame you. It looks like chow, doesn't it?
I said Chow, didn't I? Anyway, I thought it was some like Italian preschool camp or something. I don't know. But yes, because a lot of these items do seem to be transition, have to do with the transition. So
Let me clear up a little fuzziness here. I think I'm correct, Diane can tell us, that when we see these lists of disbursements, checks, those checks have been processed and mailed and issued by the time we see the list. Am I correct?
That is correct. And that's why
So-
these are being ratified. They call them ratified.
Ratified's the right word. Yep, thank you.
Can I just clarify? I see that you all have to sign these, right? I see. So do I usually just bring these to the in-person meeting and you guys go ahead and sign?
So yes, if there are back ones, I think we can make sure we're up to date at our July meeting since we'll be back in person.
Perfect.
When we're in person, Nicole,
Mhm.
we all sit around the table and scribble our names real quick and pass them
Pass
over
it
to
around.
you
Okay.
eventually, I think.
Awesome. So just do a roll call.
Yes, please.
Supervisor Mr. Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Mosier,
Yes,
Trustee Robbins,
Yes,
Trustee Rubin,
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes,
Approved on a roll call vote.
Thank you. Is there a motion related to the payroll fund?
yes,
Move to-
I will move that the payroll allocations from check number 7811 through check number 7827, totaling $25,109.03 for the month of May 1, 2021 through May 31, 2021. I would move that those allocations be approved.
second,
Any discussion?
I think that we should insert the amount of the total checks. Elliot, did you include 25,109?
I think I did, but I'll say it again. The total amount is $25,109.03.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Supervisor Mr. Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Mosier,
Yes,
Trustee Robbins,
Yes,
Trustee Rubin,
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
yes,
Approved on a roll call vote.
At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
No, no, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Oh, we didn't
one
get a
more piece
second.
of
Don't worry,
business.
don't worry. Yep.
How about when we're gonna have our next meeting is usually on
Ah.
the agenda?
That is why we passed a annual schedule last time.
Okay, then I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask a question.
Yes.
In many boards, and I think this one, but maybe Stefan would know better by history. One of the summer meetings is usually not necessarily and not done. Does this board not have that as a sort of rule of business? Because I would say we really don't probably need either in July or August a board meeting. But if we have one, that's fine. I'll be here, I think.
So, in our previous 4 years, certainly we did take off some summer meetings. Given the state of the pandemic and the state of the building, I would not be, happy to do so.
I'm with you, especially with the building.
Yes. So maybe next year.
And just as a point of clarification, I may not make the next board meeting. I'm going out of town early the next morning.
We hope that you will make it. And we hope to see you and safe travels.
I move to
Now,
adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn. Is that what you'd like?
Yes, please.
Second,
Call the roll, please.
Supervisor Mr. Eisenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Mosier,
yes.
Trustee Robin,
Yes.
Trustee Rubin,
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I hope to see you all on July 13th, back at the township, God willing, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.